Hello everyone, welcome to another Grimgar video. In this video, I'm going to review volume 9 of Grimgar. Before I begin, please hit the like button if you enjoy this video, or tell me in the comments what other books, fantasy books, anime, or light novel fantasy stuff you want me to review in the future. The way I'm going to be reviewing the light novel is I'm going to actually sum up the story, talk about the characters, talk about the themes, tell you what I liked, tell you what I didn't like, and then at the very end of the video, I will give it a review as high as A+, or as low as an F. And if you want your own copy of Grimgar, click the link in the description. You can buy the digital copy or the physical copy on Amazon. And let's begin with Grimgar Fantasy Nash, Level 9. Here and Now, Too Far, Far Away. The volume starts up immediately after the end of the last volume, with Haru and Mary actually escaping Ranta and Takagashi, and we immediately take up Haru's POV of him kind of just going through what just happened, and him really thinking about the fact that he almost killed Ranta. And if it wasn't for Mary, he would have stabbed his stiletto through Ranta's helmet and killed him. But him and Mary have a really good conversation where they lay out everything that Ranta did, whether or not he actually betrayed them, talking about their friends. And it was actually a really nice little conversation between the two of them where they just kind of talk openly with each other. And for the record, Haru does not really believe Ranta actually betrayed him. He was just put in a position where the best thing he could have done was actually to join the enemy's side to keep him and Mary alive, which is exactly kind of what happened. Also, fun fact, this is probably one of the only books where Haru has very limited POV. The first part of the story actually does follow Haru's POV, but for the rest of the story, it keeps jumping to different characters, and I absolutely love this part of the book. The POV switches immediately over to Kuzaku, who is watching Rock and Arnold, the four-armed undead, who are still fighting. And what a fight this actually is. Arnold and Rock are just straight up boxing at this point. Also, I want to quickly correct something that I made a mistake in previous videos, and I've thought about this for a while now, and I've just kind of been wrong, apparently. Arnold is not a massive undead four-armed monster. He just kind of feels like he is through the story and the way he's able to just kind of like overpower everyone. So apologies, he's actually not that big. He's just a slightly above average size monster, four-armed mummy man, basically. Because Rock is straight up straddling this man and just raining punches down on him, boxing with him, dodging, bobbing, and weaving. At one point, Arnold grabs fucking Rock and gives him a suplex and smashes his head into the ground. Like a straight up, like, hidden lotus from Naruto kind of thing. Like, these guys are going hard. Kuzaku is beyond, like, baffled with how strong they are and how much stronger Rock is than everyone else. However, Arnold's leader Jumbo gets in the way and just calls it a draw because they're going a little too hard and they're both gonna end up dying at this point. And Jumbo straight up tells them that they can all leave without, like, being killed. And he promises that he won't chase them down. Specifically, him. He will not chase them down. And he tells them all that he's strong enough to kill all of them together right then and there. And some of the Typhoon Rocks, specifically Kajita, tries to attack Jumbo and it does nothing. He just dodges him effortlessly and kind of just like explains to him like, dude, you can't take me on. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. And it's made very clear that Jumbo could kill all of them by himself. So they agree that they should probably back off. However, while the Typhoon Rocks, Kuzaku, Shiharu, and Yumi are backing off and actually leaving, Takagashi shows up and explains to everyone that Haru actually grabbed Mary, wounded Ranta, and left, and refuses to let the rest of Haru's party get away. Jumbo tells Takagashi, hey, I promised them that I would interfere, so you can do what you want, but I'm not getting involved now. Hundreds of undead and orcs around the Typhoon Rocks and Kuzaku and everyone else just start attacking them while they're trying to leave. The Typhoon Rocks are fighting off undead and orcs everywhere. Kuzaku gets ready to fight himself and actually tells Shiharu and Yumi to get out of there, and goes out of his way to defend the crap out of them by taking on multiple orcs by himself like a badass. The POV switches to Yume and Shiharu escaping, but also getting chased down by black wolves. And thanks to Yume's training as a hunter, she knows that black wolves are essentially a bad omen. Onza, the goblin who's controlling the wolves, is riding a very large black wolf after Yume and Shiharu. Yume ends up fighting Onza and the giant wolf that he's riding, and after a couple back and forths, she ends up on top of the wolf, struggling and wrestling with Onza. Eventually, this wolf starts panicking because Yume and Onza are fighting on its back and tries to get her off of him by smashing them both into trees, wounding Onza, the goblin, and Yume quite badly. Unfortunately, the wolf eventually loses its footing, slips, and starts hanging off of a giant hill. Even though they're all struggling to get back up off the side, they all do fall off this hill. Shiharu screams out she thinks Yume is basically dead, and she's also left alone surrounded by wolves. Yume, at the bottom of the hill, actually is very hurt, is covered in cuts, and possibly has some fractured ribs. Onza the goblin is trying to crawl away from Yume, But Yume, for some reason, is dead set on killing this damn goblin. And she keeps crawling over to him, trying to keep up with him to kill him, which is honestly kind of terrifying. Eventually, she realizes that she has no real reason to kill this goblin anymore. And the goblin and the wolf meet back up, and they're all wounded. And they all just kind of agree to not kill each other. Can't really understand each other, but it's very clear that nobody wants to fight anymore. The POV switches back to Chihiro, and she actually spread her darkness ability out in a giant AoE blast, which is not really like damaging the wolves, but it's essentially causing them all to panic so they can't actually see what's going on. She's having trouble actually controlling it all because she's running low on stamina, but she starts moving away while carrying the darkness with her because she has it essentially as a string in her hand, and if she loses concentration, the spell kind of disperses. But for her to do any damage to the wolves, she has to switch it out of being a giant mist and into a projectile. But the moment she drops her mist, it's going to cause the wolves to immediately attack her. So she's slowly walking towards an area that she hopes will lead to the Typhoon Rocks attacking the wolves. She causes her mist to go away because she's kind of running out of energy, and she starts running as fast as she can. Eventually, the wolves do catch up to her and start biting and damaging her quite badly, and she's essentially getting mauled to death. One of the Typhoon Rocks, the weird thief who starts saying random dumb stuff, shows up out of nowhere and does save her, and then just disappears. For no reason, he's just gone now. However, Suga, the Typhoon Rock's priest, who's actually a pretty chill guy, shows up and heals Chihiro. And if it wasn't for him, she probably would have died because she was really hurt. Chihiro and Suga kind of just agree to stay together for a little while because they can't find their own teammates anymore because of how chaotic the battlefield has gotten. After that, the scene does change to Ranta at the Forgan camp, finishing getting healed because he had his shoulder punctured by Haru, who stabbed him with a stiletto down to the guard of the stiletto. And Ranta basically reflects on everything he was doing, everything that's happened, how he feels bad that Haru wasn't able to really fully understand what he was trying to get at. You know, that's not really proper communication, so what the fuck did you expect to happen? However, there is a bit of interesting part here with Ranta when it comes to him realizing that the monsters they've been fighting this entire time are just people. Hanging out with the Forgan people has basically taught Ranta that not everything that was taught to them by Alterna is actually true. Undead, orcs, goblins, all the creatures they've been fighting so far who are intelligent are just people trying to, live their lives. And this realization kind of shook Ranta to his core. He shares some drinks with Arnold before Tagashi eventually shows up, and Ranta tells him that he wants to get stronger, he knows he's weak, and he wants to actually get better. And Tagashi goes on a long explanation on how just because somebody is weak does not mean they can't get stronger. Some people get stronger and stop getting stronger at a certain point. Some people can be the weakest, eventually becoming the strongest, and some people can be super strong and they get even stronger. It is just more or less partly luck, partly natural talent, and he tells Ranta that he doesn't really have any natural talent, but he's able to actually still get as strong as he's already gotten. And it kind of seems like Tagashi is now interested in actually training Ranta. After that, it switches to Haru and Mary actually still in the cave. They both notice this cute cat creature that has a big cat head and kind of like opposable kind of paw hand things. And this thing's walking up to them on its back hind legs. It's one of the Nis that was actually trained by Satora. Mary, after seeing this Ni, has such a long tangent in her mind about how to go about trying to pet this thing without seeming desperate. It is probably one of the funniest couple pages of just insane over-analytical brain thing I've ever seen. She just pet the damn thing, Mary. Jesus Christ. Haru does, and she goes into even a longer psychotic rant about, in her head again, about how she wants Haru to let her pet the Ni, if it's okay to pet the Ni. It's a whole thing. It was really funny. Satora shows up and actually is here to collect on her agreement with Haru about her getting his eye. And she kind of sees how Haru and Mary are interacting and starts asking a lot of questions that probably shouldn't be asked so bluntly. And she planned on actually taking Haru's eye, but then changes her mind and kind of strong-arms Haru into agreeing to pretend to be her lover until she, in her own words, says she gets bored of the idea. It's just her way of trying to get Haru to date her, but she has no idea how to go about it like a normal human being. And Haru agrees because he wants to keep his eye, and if he doesn't, she implies that she's going to take his eye and just leave. This means she's also going to pull back all of her Ni, which would not be ideal because they still need to find the rest of Haru's party. So Haru agrees, begrudgingly and also is very annoyed that he has to do this. And Mary has an internal panic attack about this whole thing because essentially he's doing this because of Mary, and she's kind of blaming herself to an extent. Honestly, Satora's an absolute fucking cunt throughout this entire book. I'm gonna keep it a stack. I think Satora's one of the more interesting characters, and a lot of people are like down on her, but holy crap, I forgot how incredibly annoying she was at the beginning of her introduction. Holy shit. Also, I forgot to mention that Satora is not only there by herself, she's with her giant meat golem, Enma, which you're not gonna see him for very long, if I'm being honest. The scene then switches back to Kuzaku, and he's actually having a dream. Dreaming about his life before Grimgar, and his arguments with his sister, and his parents' lives, and his mother. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with him in his mind, in his dream. But I'm already doing a short series talking about the characters before they got sent to Grimgar, so I'm going to leave that for a short throughout this week. If you guys want to check it out, it's probably up by now. But he wakes up after having his dream, and he finds out that he doesn't have a sword. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a shield either. And he's in a hole. We have absolutely no idea how he got to this place. None whatsoever. He's just in a hole, and he's very beat up, got bruises all over the place, and we have no idea how he got, we have no idea what happened. He was fighting a bunch of orcs, and now he's in a hole. He decides he has to climb out of it, obviously, and while he's climbing, he just makes a lot of mention on how incredibly hard it is for him to climb while wearing plated armor. He eventually does get out and starts to go look for the rest of his team. The POV switches now to Yume, who is struggling to keep up with Unza and his wolf. They eventually do sit down and actually take a long rest, where Yume actually passes the fuck out for a solid minute. And then we get flashbacks to her past and how she was bullied in high school and how people treated her because of her way of talking. It's a whole Japanese culture thing. I will talk more about it in the short series that I'm doing, but it's mostly because she talks funny, according to her bullies. Also, the fact that she likes to sleep in bushes. That's also one of the things that they make fun of her for. She wakes up and Unza and his wolf are standing over her, and she was actually really happy they didn't just abandon her. But they hear a giant scream that scares the crap out of all of them, and it's basically the roar of a dragon, essentially. They all hide in a bush, and this dragon walks around sniffing for food. The dragon does not find them, but now we know there is a dragon flying around attacking things, and they notice that the mist is starting to actually let up. The dragon flies away, and then the POV switches to Chihiro. Her and Suga are still traversing, looking around for everyone, and the dragon that attacked Yume actually attacks Suga. Chihiro immediately calls out Dark and actually stuns the dragon for a second, letting Suga actually heal himself and saving his life. And they both immediately run away. The POV then switches back to Mary, and she's following behind Haru and Satora. And Satora, quite frankly, is being unbearable at this point, talking to Haru about making a baby, and how how Haru shouldn't really talk to other women because she's his lover. It's a whole bunch of really dumb crap that, unfortunately, they're doing the whole kind of love triangle again, except it's even dumber this time because everyone knows that it's not, and it's just more annoying because, God, Satora at this point in the story is unbearable. And there's just a lot of back and forth between Satora, Mary, and Haru, and poor Haru's just stuck in the middle. He just doesn't know what to do. Also, for the record, we do not know what Haru is thinking, but Mary does describe his face and how he is reacting to certain things, and you can very much tell that he's getting very annoyed with Satora, but he's being very polite. They actually hear the dragon roar, and they see Chihiro and Suga running towards them. Haru immediately runs ahead and hugs Chihiro because he's missed all of his friends and he was worried sick about them. And this leads to one of my favorite moments with Haru, where Satora tells him that he should not be hugging other women, and he immediately tells her to shut up.
Shut up, bitch!
To give you some context to understand just how incredibly funny this actually is, Haru throughout the entire story has been insulted and had women be very rude to him. And he has not said a single negative thing towards women, including Anna, who has specifically gaslit him and was very, very rude to him, implying that he didn't like women because he didn't want to bang her best friend. And he said absolutely nothing to that. But the moment you tell this guy that he cannot hug his friends after he's been worried sick about them, he will snap at you. That's amazing. The dragon then proceeds to constantly dive bomb them, trying to hurt them. Suga starts to use a spell called Prayer, which Mary immediately tries to tell him to not do because it can cause more problems than anything else. But essentially, Prayer makes it so something random could happen. It could be good or bad. We have no idea. Or nothing could happen. We have no idea. But after he casts it, nothing seems to happen. Eventually, Kuzuku shows up and tries to help fight off the dragon. The dragon eventually gets his hands on Enma and rips him to pieces. Keep in mind that Enma was specifically designed to actually fight off dragons, which, oh boy. And because Enma gets destroyed, you actually get to see Satora show some actual emotion for once. And she actually screams out, and she's clearly very upset. Chihiro shoots out a very powerful magic missile made of dark, and it enters the dragon's body and causes the dragon to start convulsing like crazy. The moment the dragon starts convulsing, a bunch of black wolves are showing up and start biting the dragon's legs, its wings, and start just doing damage while it's stunned. And this is where Yumi shows up. Once the dragon's taking enough damage, Haru jumps on the dragon's face and stabs it in the eye with his stiletto. The dragon absolutely freaks out and basically decides it's probably a good time to retreat. So the dragon actually flies off. The gang is completely reunited, and we don't really know what happens to the Typhoon Rocks. Suga just presumably leaves, and Onza and his wolves actually retreat back to Forgan. Haru's just happy to have everyone back, and they decide to head out. Also, the mist that protects people from dragons actually reappears, implying that prayer actually did do something. But the POV switches actually right after this to Takagashi, actually. And he's kind of hungover from drinking all night. And one of his soldiers comes over and tells him that they should check something out. And they find a letter that is left by Ranta telling him that he's sorry that he tricked him and he's leaving and he hopes he doesn't follow him. Takagashi then completely is enraged and decides he's gonna go find Ranta and kick his ass. And that's actually where the book actually ends. I'll be honest, I did not remember much about Volume 9, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised. You're gonna notice a trend with the books that I give really high scores to, usually have a lot of POV switching between different characters. This one gave everyone a pretty nice moment to shine, and gave a lot of in-depth moments on how characters are thinking, what they're thinking, and how they feel about certain things. I did skip over a lot in this book, however, like how Yume's feeling over Ranta's betrayal. For the record, she's not doing great. But this book is very dialogue heavy, funny enough. A lot of characters reflecting on stuff, rethinking that what they should have done. There's a whole lot of that throughout the entire book, and I really enjoyed it, funny enough, even though some parts of the book felt kind of slow. Mary's perspectives were very entertaining for me, because she's just kind of panicking, kind of like the way that Haru was when Haru thought that she was dating Kuzuku. Yume's thoughts are just chaotic and messy, but also just kind of adorable. Chihiro is very, very analytical, and she's just kind of thinking her way through a lot of problems. Kuzuku is just very blunt. Like, he's feels very childish because he's a very childish guy, but he's also still doing what he needs to do to get back to his friends. And Ranta just sounds like he has no idea what he's been doing or what he's gonna do. He's just kind of a lost. He's lost. He's very lost. That's just the best way to explain it. Ranta feels lost and confused, and I think that's a good start to his big character arc he's gonna be having for the next couple of books. Overall, the theme of this story is basically just reuniting with your friends and missing the people who are no longer with you. In the case in this book, it's very clearly Ranta. He's basically, in their perspective, gone now. And Ranta, whether he likes it or not, does also miss his friends. If I had to give it any negatives, it would have to be that we have no idea what happened to the Typhoon Rocks, and they were such a big part of this actual, like, small arc that they just kind of disappear. And Arara and her uncle are just gone at the very beginning of the book. They don't do anything. They're just gone. And they were, again, a very big, important plot device used to get the story to where it is now, and we just don't get any closure on them at all. It just kind of feels like, what was the point? You know what I mean? But overall, I do think this book is a solid A, pushing to A+. But it's somewhere between A and A+. I might need to rethink my score for things. Maybe after I'm done with the Grimgar story, I might actually redo all of my scoring stuff for different books later on in the future. But that's my video. If you enjoyed, do all the things that YouTubers ask people to do. Thank you to all of our subscribers over on our Twitch. You guys help pay for everything. If you want to get a shout out at the end of the video, use the thanks feature here on YouTube, and I'll happily put you at the end and thank you as well. Please help us get to 500 followers over on our Twitch. We plan on doing a fun little celebration where we basically get intoxicated while watching really bad anime. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!